Hello everyone! If you clicked on this video, then you probably also sensed there's more to the game's story than two siblings looking for their lost friends in a dark, sinister world. And maybe you're here for confirmation. Maybe you need answers. Or maybe you're just like me and you like looking for deeper meaning into apparently shallow waters.
Really? Tell me about them.
Either way, welcome. And let's go ahead and find out if the game REANIMAL is actually about traumas and their manifestation. Before we begin, a small disclaimer. I've only played the demo so far, but I've been closely following the game's news and trailers for quite some time, which means I'm ready to break down the clues and explore how trauma builds throughout the game. REANIMAL is an upcoming horror adventure title currently scheduled for release in February 2026, developed by Tarsier Studios and published by THQ Nordic, the same creative team behind the critically acclaimed Little Nightmares series. As a huge fan of Little Nightmares, a franchise I absolutely adore, despite being just slightly disappointed by the third installment, I couldn't help but be intrigued the moment REANIMAL was revealed and of course begin drawing some conclusions of my own. Starting with the game poster and right down to the demo I recently played, REANIMAL seems to be a genre of horror centered around terror, corrupted innocence, missing children, and monsters that literally come out of the dark to eat you alive. So let's talk about those monsters, shall we? The famous sheep on the game poster. At its origin, the sheep represents innocence and vulnerability, a common stand-in for childhood, purity, or those who are powerless. But in trauma narratives, especially psychological horror, this innocence is rarely protected. Instead, it is exploited, which aligns organically with the unsettling tone of REANIMAL. The fact that the sheep appears deformed and more like a hybrid with its long, spidery legs suggests corrupted innocence, a trauma that has twisted something once harmless into something disturbing. If viewed through a darker lens, the sheep can also evoke sacrificial imagery, an offering made to appease something greater perhaps. This ties into ideas of generational trauma, ritualized suffering, or characters being offered up emotionally or psychologically for the benefit of others. In this sense, the sheep truly references cults or adults that take advantage of the innocent. We can also see that pigs are present, depicted quite grotesquely. Usually they function as a powerful visual for gluttony, corruption, and abusive authority, especially when contrasted with more innocent creatures like sheep. Pigs are traditionally associated with excess and consumption, but in psychological horror, this excess is rarely just physical, it's moral and emotional as well. A bloated, fat animal suggests something that takes far more than it needs, feeding endlessly while others starve, and in the context of REANIMAL, this mirrors abusive figures or systems that drain those less fortunate. The plot is also very indicative of a game based on children's traumas and imagination. REANIMAL appears to be heavily rooted in themes of fear, distorted memory, and the way children reinterpret frightening or painful experiences. The game follows a brother and sister stranded in a distorted and terrifying version of the island they once called home, a place where familiar barns and pastures have curdled into hostile landscapes. What were once probably safe spaces are now exaggerated reflections of childhood fear, suggesting that this world is shaped less by reality and more by memories. The environment itself appears unstable, reinforcing the idea that this is not simply a physical location, but a psychological space where time, logic, and safety have broken down. Rather than escaping an external evil, the siblings' journey appears to be about confronting buried fears and unspoken memories. Progress may depend not on defeating monsters, but on enduring them, learning when to hide, when to move, and when to face what cannot be fought. We also need to discuss the island as a concept and the role it plays in shaping children's fears into a living landscape nightmare, which they must explore and overcome, much like one would with a trauma. The developers have stated that the creatures and environments are grotesque echoes of the protagonist's troubled past, suggesting that the horrors players face aren't literal monsters but symbolic manifestations of emotional wounds. The island the children traverse feels like a dark reconstruction of a place they once knew, reshaped by fear, confusion, and imagination. REANIMAL doesn't just present straightforward horror, it leans into metaphor, using surreal imagery to express how trauma lingers in the mind and reshapes the world long after the real events have ended. From my perspective, the island symbolizes repressed memories that are now resurfacing to terrorize the protagonists. Locations emerge in fragmented, exaggerated forms, as if recalled imperfectly through a child's subconscious. Buildings feel too large, paths lead nowhere, and landmarks seem terrifying rather than welcoming, proving how traumatic memories often return distorted or overwhelming. And did you notice how certain objects we encounter in the game seem to have a symbolic meaning that's perfectly aligned with REANIMAL's theme? For example, let's consider the creepy masks the children are wearing. At first glance, the masks fulfill their superficial role, that of hiding the characters' identities, but upon closer examination, we realize that they actually hint at the idea of self-protection. In their dangerous world shaped by fear and memory, concealment becomes a survival strategy. Masks create distance between the children and whatever threatens them, allowing them to move through danger without being fully seen. We could go as far as claiming that due to their experiences, the masks imply that the children are not fully able or willing to present themselves as they truly are. Perhaps the objects they wear as masks also evoke shame and fear. Trauma frequently instills a belief that something is wrong with the victim, leading to self-erasure and concealment. By hiding their faces, the children may be internalizing blame or fearing judgment, suggesting that they see themselves not as victims of the island, but as part of the horror themselves. One thing I didn't see mentioned or discussed that much yet pertains to sounds. In REANIMAL, sound often takes precedence over visuals. You probably noticed in the demo that the game frequently uses distant animal cries, muffled breathing, and environmental echoes to signal danger long before it can be seen. This design choice places us in a constant state of alert and forces us to listen for other types of cues, while we're gradually immersing ourselves in the story and the world we're exploring, so I'm definitely playing the game with headphones on. For me, REANIMAL is far superior in the horror department compared to Little Nightmares, and it's almost giving me cult vibes, which would be an amazing addition to the story, or at least would render the plot to serve a higher purpose in my head. But I agree, it's a bit of a stretch, it's mostly wishful thinking on my part, although the environmental storytelling feels too deliberate to ignore. The recurring animal imagery, the masks, the emphasis on obedience and sacrifice, and the way authority feels faceless and omnipresent all suggest something ritualistic beneath the surface. If this is a cult narrative, even a symbolic one, it would elevate the story beyond individual trauma and frame the island as a system designed to perpetuate it. The horror wouldn't just be remembered, it would be inherited, repeated, and normalized, which is something that the creative team at Little Nightmares does so exceptionally well. Even if no literal cult exists within the narrative, the imagery still functions as a metaphor for one. Trauma itself behaves like a cult in this case, demanding silence, obedience, and self-blame, while disguising harm as necessity or ritual. I'm sure more of it will be revealed once the game is fully released, but until then, theorizing is also part of the experience, at least for me, because it truly helps me navigate the tides of impatience a little easier and makes the anticipation extremely fulfilling. Anyways, I hope I get to hear your theories and arguments in the comment section down below. Let me know if you will play the game when it's released and what your overall opinion about it is. Thank you for watching, my name is Danny, please help me out with a like, a share, and subscribe to my channel for more content. Take care everyone and see you next time, bye!